welcome back to the Mackinac Policy Conference. I am Zoe Clark. All this week, we're focusing on the theme of Quest for Common Ground. Two people who live and breathe this are Celeste Watkins-Hayes, the Dean of the University of Michigan's Ford School of Public Policy, and Matt Elliott of Blue Lake Ideas. Welcome to you both.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you both back here at the big desk.
It's great to be here.
So, Dean, we hear a lot about polarization, about division, but not as much about actually what is building trust these days. In your view, what are the biggest barriers to productive dialogue right now?
Well, it's a really important question. I think that when we look at the current ecosystem, we look at the political landscape, we look at the media environment, it's really about scoring points in a lot of ways. And we are trying to actively push against that. We are trying to remind people that there have been moments in the life of the country where there have been serious debates, but debates that could happen in constructive ways. We really lean into our reputation as the Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy, a president who is known for his work across the aisle, that was known for careful listening, and that was known for working to get it right as opposed to working to win the point. So I think some of the biggest barriers are we've got to push back on a system that has basically boiled down to whoever's the loudest, whoever's the meanest wins. And we've got to push back against that because we've got to get to solutions.
Is it fair to say, Matt Elliott, that some of the barriers are ourselves?
I think it actually starts with ourselves. I mean, so often the way the system is structured, but the way that we approach winning is really about trying to create a loser. And so I think it's less about trying to be right, more about trying to get it right. And that really involves listening. You know, my favorite definition of trust, to your point, is a series of promises dutifully kept. And in order to make promises, you have to get to know somebody and understand their context, understand what's important, so then you can go make that promise and deliver. And that's really what winning is about, what success for our state's about, is delivering.
Tell me about the power of and.
Well, the power of and is number one, the theme we chose in 2023.
And
I think it's closely related to this year's theme, which is finding common ground. And really, the power of and is not optional. If we want to be successful long term, we have to manage key tensions, things like the present and the future. So delivering today and investing in the future, right? Taking care of our kids and taking care of our budgets. These things are hard, and it requires managing tension, and we got to create the capacity to make that happen. That's what the power of and is about. What we end up doing instead is choosing one over the other, and in this state in particular, lurching from one pole or extreme to the other, and that makes it very difficult to get traction. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen this long decline that has led to the conclusion that the chamber has made, which is the house is on fire.
Dean, do you think as a society we're able to shift the trajectory of where it feels like we're going?
I believe that we are. I'm really hopeful. I think that there's so many people who are tired of the division, who really want to embrace the power of and, who really want to think about problem solving. They want to get curious about other people. They want to get curious about other ideas. They want to think about different ways of doing things that will get us to better solutions. I think what we really need is a collective conversation around how we make that happen. How do we build the relationships? How do we build the infrastructure that allows constructive conversations to take place? And how do we reward those who are doing it really effectively? Whether it's folks on their local school board, whether it's people operating within a university context, whether it's folks here working across the aisle at the Mackinac Policy Conference. How can we lift up those examples to show people there are other ways to do business, and there are ways to do business that really embrace the power of and?
Yeah. I don't think most people wake up in the morning and want to be angry, right? Elliott, I mean, most people. How do we bring back to our better selves?
Well, we have to, I think, first of all, understand what I call the cultural amplifier to this binary thinking trap that we've gotten ourselves caught up in. Because while we don't want to get up every day and be angry, that's exactly what our feeds want to create in us, because that drives engagement, you know? And and ultimately, though, we're going to need to find a way to expand a conversation so that everybody starts to work with a similar set of facts, and they can understand that, you know, you and I or those other people aren't too different from each other. The mayor said it best yesterday that, hey, most of Michiganders, in his view, agree on 60 to 70% of things. Let's go work on that. But instead, we end up in a situation where, for example, most Michiganders think we're doing okay, on things like education, on things like per capita income, and we're not okay. And we need to have a conversation about that first before we can start to go to work on solutions.
Yeah, we're not okay. It's one of the, aside from the quest for common ground, the house is on fire has been one of the things that we've been talking about at the conference so far, Dean. What do you make of folks not necessarily understanding just where Michigan ranks when it comes to population growth, when it comes to reading scores? I mean, what do you make of this sort of not wanting to necessarily know about where we are right now?
I think, number one, we've got to make sure that we're getting the information out there. I think that if people are operating with assumptions from 5, 10, 20 years ago, then they're not getting the accurate information. And then really helping people understand, what does it mean for their own lives? What does it mean when you raise a child who you feel like is not getting the best education that you would like to see? Or raising a child who's had a wonderful education and says, I don't want to return to the state of Michigan after I leave college. I really want to go elsewhere. When we think about the economic climate and what it's like to be personally affected or have someone near you affected by our economic outcomes. So making sure that people, first of all, have the facts, but also have an opportunity to think about what it means for their own lives, I think we'll get more people invested in. Everybody's got to pick up an oar. We've got to start rowing in the same direction.
Yeah. Matt, bipartisanship is often framed as compromise, but there are folks who say compromise is a weakness, right, in this society. How do you define meaningful collaboration without asking people necessarily to abandon their core values?
I think a couple of things. Number one, in many ways, compromise is not an optimal decision. In many ways, compromise is dividing a fixed pie so that eventually everyone goes hungry. The hard work, actually, and the power of and work is about how do we do synthesis?
Right.
So how do we land in a place that's actually better and grows the pie? And that involves a lot of listening. That involves a lot of understanding each other's contexts. And I think that, for example, the way that Mayor Duggan the way he went about getting elected mayor and what he was doing with his gubernatorial campaign is a great example, because he ends up sharing the context of the person in the city of Detroit and the person in Kalkaska, Michigan, which actually aren't that different.
Yes.
And everybody can see themselves in the story. Stories animate us as humans. Statistics don't. Now, a lot of the people at this conference, we like to geek out on statistics, and by the way, I'm that guy.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, what really is going to change behavior is story.
Yeah.
When you can see what I'm giving up and what I could gain, those are things that motivate and animate.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we talk to our students about along those lines are asking great questions. Instead of asking, how could you think that? Or why would you believe that? Really thinking, tell me about how you came to take that view. Tell me why that's so important to you. Tell me a story about how you came to have this view and how it was really impactful in your life.
And you're doing some of that in your conversations across differences.
We are. We at the Ford School of Public Policy, we have an event series called Conversations Across Differences. Yeah. Viewers can watch a lot of our previous episodes online, on YouTube. We have a program called the Bridge Builders Program among our students, where students are learning how to use these tools of constructive dialogue. Much of what we've talked about today, they're putting it in practice and using it with their peers. And they're also describing that as a marketable skill on their resumes. So the idea that when we think about what's the incentive structure, increasingly we have students at the Ford School who recognize that this is a skill that will carry them forward into organizations where they want to be leaders. So we think that this is critical work, and we invite people to check out the Ford School website to see everything that we're doing, and check out our YouTube programming, where you'll really be inspired by hearing people talk across the aisle. Yeah. We just hosted one with State Senator Stephanie Chang and John DeMoose, and it was a fascinating conversation about bipartisanship and working together across the aisle.
And helping to build the next generation with students being part of watching this and living it and breathing it.
Yeah.
Dean, Matt, thank you so much.
Our pleasure.